Okay, welcome to the coffee show. Another special edition. We've had really good podcast all day long, all yesterday as well for the World of Coffee of Jakarta. Got a guest today, very special guest. I knew as soon as I saw that he was attending the conference, I had to book him on. Welcome to the coffee show, Jay Kim.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
It's been a blast here, hasn't it? So, I don't think I've ever been to a coffee expo that's been as busy as this.
Same.
Obviously, Jakarta is a city of 28 million people or something like that. And I'm pretty sure they've all come in and out of the expo in the last 2 days.
Literally. It's been nuts.
So tell us a little bit about you. You're a coffee content creator and the co-founder of the UFO Dripper.
Right on, yeah. So I don't know which camera to look at, or do I just look at you?
Just look at me.
Yeah, let's do it.
Deep into my eyes.
Those are very pretty eyes, so I'm going to be staring deep into your eyes.
This could get heated.
But so my name is Jay. I'm the founder of UFO Dripper and also working as a content creator to really focus on coffee education and also be a voice for hospitality and specialty coffee. Yeah. And I also do work part-time as a bit of a freelancer in consulting with a few different cafes and roasteries and just individuals as well. But my home company would be Fill Out Coffee in Korea.
Fill Out Coffee. So is that your business or you work for them?
No. So I'm just a freelancer with them as well. So I'm what we call a Fill Out crew. But there's no financial obligations or financial transactions between either of us. Mm-hmm. It's just I help them out and they help me out. So last year in Korea Brewers Cup Championships, they sponsored me. And also, they bought my greens, they roasted, they did all kinds of stuff. So
shout out to them.
Yeah,
shout out to them.
Precisely.
Korea's just I went there in 2019. Absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
And one of my really good friends, Charlie Chu.
Momos.
Kyungcha. So he's got a really interesting story. We met at a random ass cafe in Melbourne.
Yeah.
And I worked for a business called Saint Ali at the time. And he really wanted a job at a better cafe. And he's like, can you help me get a job? And I was like, yeah, okay, sure. And then he came and worked at Saint Ali and he would always he wanted to cup coffee every day. One of the hardest working guys I've ever met. Yeah. But he would cup coffee every single day. And then he went on to, long story short, went on to win the World Cup Tasters Championship and then moved back to Korea. Now in a happy marriage with Junjeon as well. They've got a lovely kid. So he's got a terrific story.
Yeah, he's got it made. I mean, I've had the pleasure of meeting Charlie as well as his wife, Juyeon. And they have an incredible business. I don't know if you've been to Momos in Busan or not.
I have, but I haven't been to their new location.
Yeah, the new location is absolutely stunning. It's right at the harbor. It's just absolutely stunning, state-of-the-art equipment. They recently purchased a new lowering as well. Mm-hmm. And so if you ever get a chance to visit, I would heavily recommend it.
Yeah, I'll be back. I'll be back for sure. Hopefully I can go back next year. I want to talk to you a little bit about the content you create because you've got some really cool videos that I've seen. Loves an inspirational quote, I must say. So, cheers. I mean, one of the... I might even pull some up. Oh, my phone's over there. But I saw some of the ones that you post frequently about hospitality.
Yeah.
Why is it that, and I agree with you fully, but why is it that you feel like almost hospitality should be just as much of a focus, if not a bigger focus, as trying to make a good brew of coffee?
Yeah. So if you think about it, before we were ever specialty coffee professionals, before we became so assimilated into this thing, specialty coffee, we didn't really know what it was. And the reason why we got so passionate about specialty coffee is because of this trust that we built with specialty coffee in different flavors it has. And we were very curious about what possibilities might have existed in specialty coffee. But I think to bring people into that, I think to make people more curious about this thing, specialty coffee, one of the greatest drivers of that, one of the greatest catalysts is hospitality. So before I was ever a coffee professional, I was hosting weekly tasting sessions at my own home every single week, sometimes multiple days a week. So this was before I was working in coffee and did that for nearly 2 years. And I saw power of hospitality and I experienced power of hospitality firsthand. I saw that making people feel seen, making people feel really appreciated is what's really important in having them be sparked, having their interests sparked in what it is that we're doing. Because even you and I, Kirk, we met via specialty coffee as a medium, right? We didn't just meet each other. We're meeting each other through specialty coffee as a medium. And you introducing me to your space, to this podcast, you're being hospitable, right? And so we actually, matter of fact, we extend hospitality whether we know it or not. How you made me feel comfortable by me being here, how you acknowledge some of the things that I've done, your background research on what it is that I do, and some of the things that I'm interested in. Those are all actually aspects and portions of hospitality. And so hospitality just makes people feel seen and appreciated in moments where we may not even know what it is that they might be going through, right? And so I think that emotional part about acknowledging each other's humanity, that was a definition of hospitality that I actually heard from somebody else, from another hospitality professional. And I think that really hits home, right? Acknowledging each other's humanity through whatever it is that we're acknowledging that through. Sometimes it's food, sometimes it's through a podcast, sometimes it's through coffee. And for me, it's specialty coffee.
Well, I feel like coffee is one of those things where your local cafe or one of the cafes you go to, it's almost like a home away from home.
Precisely.
And the good cafe is one that the guest can sort of take ownership of as well.
Right,
So it's
right.
like, this is part of my community. This is
Right.
part of my daily life.
Right.
And so from that end, I guess that's part of the specialty coffee experience.
Yeah.
And you put it within the context of like, looming challenges like AI, for
Exactly.
example, and automation. And I still don't think the human part of coffee will ever go away.
No.
Because it's almost like the most demanded part of a coffee shop
Exactly.
currently now.
Exactly. I mean, you think about it, if you think of a good coffee shop, right? For instance, what's a good coffee shop in Melbourne? A shop that serves spectacular coffee, perhaps. Shop with spectacular interior, or a shop with really well-organized staff members, right? Very clean environment, or environment where you can work and in a quiet place. A good cafe is defined in so many different ways, but every single one of us, we all have the cafe that we go to. And the difference between a good cafe and the cafe is people. And it's the hospitality that's provided to people. Because when we think about our favorite cafes, for instance, what's your favorite cafe? Can you put one? Can you name one?
Oh boy. Look, some of the ones I like going to in Melbourne, there's a place called Asoy, for example. Asoy.
Asoy. Okay. So why do you like going to Asoy?
Well, they make brilliant coffee, they make brilliant matcha, and the owners are, really lovely people.
Exactly.
And they bring their dog to work each day.
Exactly. That last part, though, really hits home. And the owners, right? So you briefly mentioned some of the aspects of what makes a good cafe. And then you brought us home by mentioning the owners. The owners are people. And our favorite cafes, believe it or not, aren't our favorite cafes because we like them. It's because they like us.
Okay.
Think about that.
Well,
really think about that.
So what do you mean by that? Is that like they like us as in the interactions we have, so they're giving excellent service?
As in the owners like you as a person, Kirk?
I like
the
them so.
The owners appreciate you as a person. The owners just don't treat you as a simple transaction of, oh, Kirk's here, let's make him a good cup of coffee. It's, oh, Kirk's here. I wonder what Kirk's been up to. I wonder what kind of projects he has going on, right? Because the owners are interested in you as a person, because owners are, believe it or not, respecting and honoring your humanity and you as an entity. That's why we feel welcome when we walk into those places. That's why it feels like those are our favorite cafes, when in reality, they're our favorite cafes because they like us. We are their favorite guests.
Well, I love that. And, I guess there's so many of my customers now, because I've got a coffee shop in Melbourne that I just really love as well. And, you're speaking my language. What are some of the differences between, you explained that you moved from North Carolina to Korea. Mm-hmm. What are some of the differences between, say, the Korean coffee scene and the US coffee scene?
Oh man, it's really, really, really different. So when I first moved to Korea, I had plans of opening up a cafe. Other than starting manufacturing of UFO Dripper, I wanted to start a cafe. That's really why I moved to Korea. Before I moved to Korea, I was exploring options. The 3 countries were actually, one of them was to go to Melbourne. Mm-hmm. So it was Australia, Korea, or Germany, just because I had a friend of mine who was in Germany at the time. A dear friend of mine, his name is Suin, and now he's in Finland with his lovely wife, starting a little cafe. They're starting to really put things together. But anyway, Yeah, so I wanted to open up a cafe and then quickly realized that right now is not the time for me to open a cafe. I realized that there's so much more to running a cafe than just the hospitality aspect. And so that's not something that was within my capacity at the time. And so decided not to pursue that. But nonetheless, the biggest difference is concentration. Korea is a significantly smaller country in size compared to the States, but there are 100,000 different cafes.
Right.
100,000.
Wow.
It's absolutely insane. Granted, not all of them are doing specialty coffee, but a lot of them are. And a lot of roasteries, actually, instead of just getting coffee from a big roastery, for instance, in the States, Counterculture, Black and White, those are some major accounts for smaller cafe businesses. But in Korea, people just choose to roast their own coffee. So what will be considered a sample roaster, for instance, like a 5 kilo Probot, P5, is a full-blown production roaster in Korea. And so that's been really interesting, is seeing all these small, true micro roasters in Korea and their focus on really, really delivering an exquisite experience as far as the displays go, the interiors go, coffee cards go. I mean, you'll see really, really thick cardstock coffee information cards that are sometimes even laid in with real gold foil. Right? Stuff that we just wouldn't see in the States.
Some fancy ass stuff.
Right, like really, really fancy stuff, but with quite terrible coffee. So that's the kicker, really, is there's a lot of people that are focused on a lot of the superficial stuff. Whereas in the States, I've seen less of the superficial stuff and more so focus of the actual coffee quality itself. And so that's really been the biggest difference I've seen, is that there are so many different roasteries that are doing their own things, doing cool things, but a lot of them I think are maybe focused on the wrong things instead of really communicating with the communities. And so, yeah.
I mean, I'm interested in the States. I'm considering moving there next year.
Oh, really?
I want to move to New York. So
sick.
it would be, I'm hoping I can go there at some stage this year and check it out. You know, bit of try before you buy.
Why New York?
Well, my partner is studying dentistry.
Gotcha.
And she would be able to practice in New York if she passes an exam easy. Plus, like, I think I would just love it there. I think there'd be good opportunities for our business over there. So New York appeals to me. I'm like a massive American sports guy. I love the NFL. I love the NBA. All of it. Like it's. So I think I would really, really immerse myself in that quite a lot. So
something actually came to mind real quick before we move on to the next topic. A big difference between Korea and the States is that the enthusiast community is the home enthusiast community. So the non-coffee professionals, but people that are just like super nerdy about coffee. In the States, there's a very active physical communities that exist where people get together and brew coffee. People get together and share coffee. We have a culture of inviting people over to our own homes in the States, whereas in Korea, none. None. It's all online based.
Okay.
So everybody just talks crap about other roasteries, other people, other enthusiasts. There's like 3 different cults of specialty coffee communities that exist in Korea, and they're all tied to different businesses. And so, it's really interesting that so many people, because Korea is much, much, much more technologically advanced, we're seeing that trend even in the coffee communities. Is everybody's just online. No one really meets up with each other in real life. And so, it's a little bit weird and awkward. So I tried to start a legitimate physical community, but I've been told not to.
Oh man, don't listen to him. I'm sure you won't. But
so I tried it, and then pictures of there's just something like privacy just was compromised, I guess. And so I decided to not do that anymore.
Well, it's interesting you say that because in Melbourne, we've got a huge community of Korean baristas, huge community of Japanese baristas and Chinese as well, Indo, everywhere from Asia, really. But they're very active and come together all the time, and I think that's a very Melbourne thing. But they contribute a huge amount to the coffee scene, to be honest. Like the coffee scene and the country probably wouldn't be the same without them. Because they'll come over on a working holiday or
they crush it
as a student. and they fill up the jobs for a lot of
For
baristas.
real.
Like we cannot function as an industry in Melbourne without them.
Precisely.
So and I, I love and appreciate what they bring.
Yeah.
Like Korean hipsters in Melbourne, there's plenty of them. There's plenty.
Too many of them. Too many of them. I've heard.
But they bring it. They make good coffee. And
Which city has better coffee, Melbourne or Sydney?
look, I'll say Melbourne. I'm from Sydney, but
Really?
I'll say Melbourne. There's some shops in Sydney that are among the best in the world, frankly.
Yeah.
But your average coffee in Melbourne is probably slightly better.
Gotcha. Single O's in Sydney.
They are,
Yeah.
and they're a roaster of high repute.
Yeah.
But like you walk out the door in Melbourne, there's 5 cafes within a kilometre that serve specialty coffee.
Exactly.
Have you been?
No. Actually, I'll be in Sydney at the end of this year.
Okay.
We're hosting a pretty big UFO Dripper Brewers Cup with a company in Sydney. I believe they're out of Sydney, the Grounds.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. So we're doing a pretty big Brewers Cup competition with the Grounds.
Okay.
And so yeah, that's I guess it's my first time actually announcing that in public.
Okay,
And
well,
so-
you heard it here first.
Yeah,
you heard it here
Heard
first.
it here at the coffee show with Kirk Pearson first.
I love that.
But, yeah, man.
well, I mean, if you've got the time, take a couple days in Melbourne. You will not regret it because it's a big flight over.
Wicked.
Yeah, you should absolutely.
That's the plan.
And the look, I'm sure you could do a little side event down there.
Right.
I don't know if the grounds would be too happy with that, but I'm sure you could go do some work. They would love it.
Word.
Tell us more about the UFO Dripper.
Yeah, so the UFO Dripper was actually not a project that I personally started. So I was there from the very beginning, of course, but it was my old business partner, Kenzie Shea, who actually was the one that came up with the 80-degree wall angle idea. It wasn't my idea. And so Kenzie was a guest at one of my tasting sessions, and I could tell he was just a nerd, right? He looked like a nerd. He talked like a nerd. I was
Like one.
Right. I told Kenzie this, and so we can put it on record as well. I told Kenzie, I was like, dude, you were really weird. You were just really weird. And so, but anyway, much love to Kenzie. Him and I are still great mates after the transition, because I recently actually bought Kenzie's shares.
Okay.
Because Kenzie decided to move on to starting more and doing more of the cafe work, more so people front work. And so he requested that he step away. And so, yeah, very, very lucky to still have incredible friendship with Kenzie. But yeah, it was Kenzie's idea. And so he approached me saying, hey, Jay, would you like to make a dripper with me? And I said, why? Why would you make a dripper when a V60 and an Oria V3 exist? What could you possibly make that can beat those two things? And so I told him no. But Kenzie was very adamant and said, well, would you at least consult on the project then? So I said, okay, because I've been a huge dripper nerd for a long while, and Kenzie's seen my dripper collection. And I think that's why Kenzie requested that I consult on the project. But as the project grew, as I really started to explore the idea of this 80-degree wall angle, it was fascinating. It genuinely worked. We just needed to figure out how to actually make it work and how to introduce it to the general public. And so some of the big key ideas ended up becoming mine. So that's when Kenzie said, I can't call this just my project. How about we become 50-50 business partners? And so that's how I became co-founder of UFL. And now I'm starting to operate it on my own. This is a very recent change. But yeah, that's how it came about. And then Wataru kind of changed Kenzie and I's lives. I mean, genuinely, truth be told, if it weren't for Wataru placing second at World Brewers Cup Championships using the UFO V1, which was a 3D printed prototype, really.
What year was this?
This was 2024.
Okay.
This was last year.
Right.
Yeah, this was last year around exactly this time. If that hadn't happened, there's no chance that you would be requesting that I be on your podcast.
Oh, you don't know
There's just
that.
no chance. No, I mean, genuinely. I really mean that, because Wataru placing second place at World Brewers Cup Championships using my product is the reason why I was able to have so many doors that opened that would have otherwise never opened. The different friendships that I now have, the network that I've been able to create, that all exists because Wataru placed second place at Worlds. Granted, I've done a lot of groundwork.
Yeah.
And for the groundwork, I really have to shout out my friends at Counterculture and Black and White. Lem Butler, who recently decided to move away from black and white, step out.
He's a legend of the industry.
Absolute legend. Him and his old business partner and current black and white head of coffee program, Kyle Ramage.
Kyle Rampage.
Those are two of my absolute coffee mentors, alongside Jesse Gordon. He's one of the educators at Counterculture. If it weren't for those three folks, I wouldn't be here. And because of the groundwork that they helped lay out for me, I think that's why the timing worked out really, really well. And so Wataru placing second was a bit of a trampoline effect to my coffee career. And so, yeah, I mean, that's just how it is. That's the reality. It's not me being fake, humble. This is just humility at its finest. This is just real, raw humility, right? Is acknowledging that these things happen. That's why we're sitting here right now.
So explain to me how the UFO dripper works. And supplementary question before we answer that, actually. Is anyone here using it at the World Brewers Cup?
Yeah, actually, 3 competitors are using UFO. There's Korea Brewers Cup champion Sungduk Kim using the UFO dripper, and there's Luis Lorio from the Philippines that is using the UFO dripper, and there's another Brewers Cup competitor. Man, I'm totally blanking out on the country at the moment, but he used a UFO V2 and a switch combination, and he just smashed it out there. And so, yeah, there's a total of 3 competitors that I know of that use the UFO dripper.
And explain to me the functionality of it.
Yeah, so the entire 80-degree wall angle concept is really the basis and the core of the UFO drippers concept. There are other drippers that also utilize the negative rib channels, the air channels, which we believe to be the greatest way to achieve consistent airflow, because airflow exists behind the filter. But because that technology already existed before we ever introduced it into the world, although I do think that UFO placing second place at Worlds and our efforts in marketing was really what kind of popularized the concept of air channels and brought forth into the world what negative air ribs even is, right? But we can't take credit for it. There's been plenty of other drippers that have done that. Nobody just knew they existed. I mean, shoot, I thought I was the first to have come up with the idea because they just were never surfaced. But yeah, it wasn't us that invented the concept. 80-degree wall angle is what's really cool. So by creating a wall angle that's greater than traditional 60 degrees, what we're able to achieve is a coffee bed depth that's thinner by 21%. And when we have a brew bed that's thinner by 21%, we're able to bring water's energy into the deeper portions of the brew bed more efficiently. And by doing that, we promote a more even extraction in a conical brewer. Because traditionally speaking, 60-degree wall angle brewers, water was not able to fully saturate the bottom portions. But now with the UFO, we can. And so, yeah, that's really the beauty of the 80-degree wall angle and what makes it really special.
So what profile do you think it gives a coffee? Like some brewers emphasize different things and result in different outcomes. What would you say the outcome of using a UFO dripper as it's supposed to be used would be?
UFO is really simple. There's no need to overcomplicate it. It's literally right down the middle between a V60 and a flat bottom dripper. For instance, like a Kalita Wave. And so you're going to get beautiful assets like a conical brewer, like a 60-degree wall angle dripper, and then also the beautiful texture and sweetness that you would in a flat bottom.
I've seen one of your reels actually. You're big on hand grinders, and this is something that I think people that are new to coffee might not really understand. Is that a lot of the people at the Brewers Cup right here, literally a competition to make the best filter coffee in the world. Yeah, they're using hand grinders. Yeah. So explain to me what are some of your favorite attributes of using a hand grinder and why it's every bit as good as a really high quality electric grinder.
Yeah. So that's a really good question and a really good statement. So the reason why I really enjoy hand grinders is because 1, it's portable, and 2, I get to really get the feel for the coffee, how dense the coffee is. And I get to really control how fast I grind even, or how slow I grind. And a lot of the competitors are using hand grinders here today because it's just impossible to carry over an electric grinder from all over the world. I mean, you have people coming from the States. Justin Bull representing the United States. He can't bring an electric grinder. I mean, he could, but there's a lot of risk involved with bringing electric equipment over into different countries because there's different voltages and there's different hertz. And so your grinder may not function the way you might have wanted it to. And so having a good hand grinder is a key to consistency in terms of how you want the coffee to taste. And so that's one of them. And another aspect is exactly what I just talked about with as far as getting the feel for the density of the coffee, because the harder the coffee is to grind, the more dense the coffee is. Generally speaking, the more heavily processed coffees that we're seeing recently in recent days are going to be less dense because the processing actually deteriorates and breaks down the cell walls. And so it roasts differently, it takes on heat differently, and it grinds differently. And the coffee also allows water to flow through differently. And while you're grinding, you can get a general sense for how dense your coffee might be. And for you to collect that data, I guess you just need to grind a lot using hand grinders.
So if you use it, let's put this in practice. If you're grinding and it's easier, maybe you can smell it as well.
Precisely.
You can tell that it's maybe an anaerobic or something.
Exactly.
You can make inferences with that.
Exactly.
Maybe I can pour with a lower temperature because it will dissolve quicker and all those sorts of things. So
exactly.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think hand grinders are good, and there's a number of good ones out there. Speaking of which, got a shout out to Timor, who have collaborated with Millet to develop a brand new hand grinder. So they were one of our partners for this program. Hand grinders, also electric grinders, kettles. If you need some parts for your brewing, consider timor.com or your local distributing partner. I want to ask you as well.
Real quick, before we get to that question.
Yeah.
Timor Fish is my all-time favorite pouring kettle.
Timor Fish.
Timor Fish.
Why?
Because it has just beautiful ergonomics. This is something that Anita over at Slow Pour Supply has taught me. Anita is an ex-musician, actually. And so she's very, very sensitive about ergonomics. And when we were discussing different kettles, because there was a time when I really geeked out over kettles, I tested, 10 of them at the same time. And I've also done some work for some of the kettle manufacturers in terms of consulting for product development. But Timor Fish just has beautiful, beautiful ergonomics. The tipping point is incredibly well balanced.
Yes.
So it's very easy for baristas to control how it flows. And another thing too is that the gooseneck design itself allows for full control over how close you get your spout height to your brew bed, which is very, very important. It's an aspect that a lot of people just kind of forget about. But some kettles don't allow you to pour very close to the coffee bed itself, which then is going to provide more agitation than perhaps you may want, depending on different coffees and recipes. And so, yeah, shout out to Fish.
Well, there you are, the Timor Fish. I think I noticed Carlos Escobar was using that. We just had him on the podcast before you.
Wicked.
So there's a number of competitors using it. What are some of your favorite coffees to brew? Like if you've got, let's say, a gun to your head, all right, you've got one more filter coffee that you can have. You can only pick one. What are you going with?
Beautiful, washed Panamanian geisha.
Oh, yeah, the apex. I would say washed Panama geisha is like, it's kind of what every coffee professional loves most.
Yeah.
There's a lot of I like to think that I'm ambivalent with coffee. Really, it depends on my mood.
Yep.
What I want to have that day. So it could change from day to day. But
Exactly.
Washed geisha from Panama, some of the best farms that do it. I had some beautiful Jansen this morning. Elita Estate, obviously fantastic. Bambito Estate makes one of the best washed geishas
Of course.
ever.
They won BOP with their washed geisha, I believe.
Yeah, they did.
Years ago, but yeah.
Carmen and Longboard Coffee. Man, Longboard, they're just blown up in the last few years, haven't they?
Oh, yeah.
There's I remember I used to be able to buy it for, I can't remember how much it was a kilo. It's a couple $100 a kilo. That's now thousands.
Exactly.
So he's done terrific, and it's
Justin's
probably
done incredible work.
He's probably they've got an auction coming up soon, so you'll be able. So they're now going to auction off their coffees.
Very cool.
I also forgot to mention Esmeralda. You can't have a conversation about washed geisha without mentioning Esmeralda.
Truth.
I'm so sorry. Hey, we'll wrap up in a moment. What's one thing we haven't spoken about that you wanna let the good listeners of the coffee show know?
Oh man. So actually, really interesting conversation I had very, very quickly with John Christopher.
John Christopher
is an Indonesian Brewers Cup champion, also finalist at World Brewers Cup Championships. And he actually wanted to consider exploring an idea of utilizing UFO dripper for the competitor that he was coaching. And then at this year's Indonesia Brewers Cup Championships, the competitor ended up not using the UFO dripper. and instead he used a yellow funnel from IKEA. Have you seen that?
No.
There's been this fad going around online of IKEA funnels. They've literally been sold out of certain IKEA locations because it's just been such a big movement to use this $2 funnel to brew coffee instead of the UFO, because it has very similar wall angles as a UFO. So initially, I can't lie, I'm a human. And so when I saw that and the IKEA funnels were blowing up all over the world and people are gifting IKEA funnels to me, I was a bit disappointed. I was a bit upset because to me, I made this dripper and I've been approached that he may consider using the dripper, but then instead they had used this yellow funnel for $2 instead. That was my shortcomings of understanding different worlds and how they function. I had a very quick conversation with John in terms of why he ended up using it and why that's such a beneficial thing. Is because, do you know how much the average barista pay monthly here is?
I think it's like, what, $300 a month sort of
Precisely.
thing?
Precisely. It's $400 US dollars. That's what, like 450 Australian dollars?
Something like
500 Australian dollars? And that's if you're a good barista, right? And so when you put that into context, UFO dripper is $45. It's not accessible.
Yeah.
It's not accessible. These coffee tools that are incredibly accessible to people like you and I are simply not even a thing that people can think about having at home or using for competition. 3 UFO drippers is 1/3 of their monthly pay. What are they supposed to do? Live with UFO drippers? You know, you can't eat UFO drippers. And so these cultural differences in different economies and being mindful of how we live and how I perceive things, right? Being educated in different economies and how different people function in different societies was a bit of an eye-opener. Although I am Asian, so my eyes are still closed physically. But
I'm not going near that one. I'm not going near that one.
but nonetheless, yeah, it was an incredible moment of, wow, I was ignorant. I was upset when I should have taken that and gone, this is incredible. What John is doing is creating and really letting these baristas know you can do it. You can compete without having so much money invested into equipment.
Well, that's an incredible story. And I think it sort of resonates with my trip as well. And, you know, if I can relate it to sort of coffee producers. So I think in the Western world, we need to remember that drinking coffee is not a human right. It's actually a privilege.
Exactly.
It's a privilege that we get to be able to do it. And we're so lucky to be born in some of the countries that we are, because our lives, it's almost like you've won the lottery, because your life's instantly easier in so many ways than tens of millions, hundreds of millions, billions of other people.
Exactly.
So, like, you know, going to the coffee farm in Bandung the other day, and, you know, it just made me aware that, like, we get the ultimate privilege on the consumer side of coffee. That's just like, we need to remember things like that. And it's a beautiful story you just told, because like, how amazing that he was able to do that. And,
exactly.
You know, and it's, you know, it says a lot about you that you would credit that, you know, despite probably initially feeling disappointed. It's a pretty incredible thing that he's done.
It's a beautiful thing he's done.
So, look, I think we all need to remember the enormous privilege we have in being able to be on this side of the coffee supply chain. And I guess the responsibility we have in this part of the industry, like we got to make life easier for other people.
Yeah, brother.
So, and, you know, I think we'll end on that, because that's exactly what I want to impart with other people. Like, not make people feel guilty. Like, obviously, you know, you're alive, you got to enjoy things, but you know, that's got to be part of our mission statement as an industry.
Cheers.
Hey, thanks so much for just letting some random guy DM you and saying yes. It's an honor, it's a privilege. Thank you so much. You're a kind guy.
I'm just another random guy as well. Here we are. Appreciate y'all. Thanks for having me on, Kirk.
Thanks everyone for listening. That's us.
Cheers.